The funeral had ended hours ago, but Emma stayed by the edge of the field, where her father's pickup truck sat half-sunk in the wet autumn soil. The rest of the family had gone home, leaving the smell of rain, cigarettes, and gasoline hanging in the air. Her father, Charles Whitmore, had always kept that truck spotless, a habit that bordered on obsession. Except now, when the ashtray overflowed, the floor was littered with receipts, and the glove box barely closed. She wasn't sure what she was looking for when she climbed inside. Maybe just a piece of him that hadn't been buried. The seat still held the shape of his body, the steering wheel cold and slick from his fingerprints. When she pulled open the glove box, it didn't fall apart like in the movies. It stuck, resisted, then gave way with a hollow pop. Inside, beneath expired registration papers and a half-empty pack of mints, was a spiral notebook with a torn blue cover. The paper was stiff with moisture, edges frayed, but her brother's handwriting was unmistakable. Liam, 10 years gone. 10 years since he'd stormed out of this same truck, shouting that their father was a liar, a thief, and worse. Emma remembered that night, the porch lights swinging in the wind, her mother crying into her apron, her father sitting silent at the kitchen table, a glass of whiskey untouched before him. After that, Liam vanished from their lives. No calls, no letters, no trace except a handful of bitter memories. Now, seeing his handwriting again, her throat tightened. The first page began mid-sentence, as if ripped from another book. He told me I should be grateful. Grateful for what he stole. Emma's breath caught. Her father? What had he stolen? She flipped further, each page heavy with rage and confusion. Notes on money, on lies, on something about the land behind the creek. But then came the last entry. If anything happens to me, it's because he made it happen. The words felt like a confession and a curse at once. She sat there for a long time, rain drumming against the windshield, her fingers trembling over the ink that had bled into the paper. She should have closed the notebook, walked away, told herself it was just Liam's anger spilling onto pages. But she couldn't. Something about the way her father had whispered before he died, "Don't believe everything you hear about me," now sounded less like guilt and more like warning. That night, when Emma returned to the house, her mother was asleep, her grief folded neatly into silence. The clock ticked in the hallway, and the refrigerator hummed like an old engine. Emma sat at the kitchen table under the dim yellow light and reread the notebook until dawn, each line pulling her deeper into a story she didn't understand. The next morning, the first message arrived. No number, no name, just a single text with a photo of the very same notebook page she had been reading, the words "he told me I should be grateful" highlighted in red. Beneath it, another line, "You deserve to know what really happened to him." Her heart raced. Only she had the notebook. It hadn't left her sight since she found it. She checked the doors, locked. The windows, latched. Yet someone knew. She typed back a trembling question. Who is this? But the message failed to send. It was as if the number didn't exist. She stared at her phone for a long time, the reflection of her pale face staring back at her through the screen. A sound creaked outside, the groan of wood, maybe the porch steps. She froze. When she finally pulled back the curtain, she saw nothing but the empty driveway, the pickup still parked under the oak, its windows fogged. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there, watching. That night she dreamed of her brother's face. Older, thinner, his eyes sharp with accusation. In the dream, he said her name the way he used to when they were kids, a soft warning before he did something reckless. She woke before dawn, her phone buzzing again. Another message, same block number. This time, just coordinates. A rural spot north of town, near the creek their father had once forbidden them to go. Beneath it, 5 words that turned her stomach cold. It's where he hid everything. She stared at them until the letters blurred. The house was silent, her mother's bedroom door closed. Emma looked at the notebook lying open on the counter, the ink gleaming like a wound. She didn't know if she was chasing her brother's truth or falling into his madness. But something in her, the part that still needed to understand why he left, wouldn't let her stop now. By sunrise, she was driving her father's truck down the narrow road out of town, the notebook on the seat beside her, and the mist ahead thick enough to hide almost anything. The road to the creek was worse than Emma remembered. Narrow, cracked, choked by overgrown branches that scraped the sides of the truck like fingernails, But she kept driving until the GPS screamed it had lost signal and the tires sank into soft mud. She got out, boots sinking, breath visible in the cool morning air, the silence so thick it felt staged. The coordinates on her phone pointed deeper into the woods, and though every instinct told her to turn back, she pushed forward, brushing aside wet branches, her jeans collecting mud and burrs. After 10 minutes of walking, she saw it, the old shack by the creek, boards warped with moisture, roof half collapsed, windows shattered. She and Liam used to play here when they were kids, long before the fights, before the distance, before he turned into a stranger she couldn't recognize. Back then, their father had forbidden them to come near it, calling it unsafe, but now Emma realized there was another reason, one that had nothing to do with splinters and falling boards. The door resisted before opening with a slow, painful groan. Inside, the floor was layered in damp leaves and paper scraps. Someone had been here recently. There were footprints in the mud, cigarette ashes, and on the back wall, a rusted metal toolbox. She lifted the lid and found stacks of letters tied with a leather strap, receipts, old photos, and a sealed brown envelope with her father's handwriting. To Liam. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She should have left. She should have taken this to the police. But instead she tore the envelope open. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and a deed transferring a portion of the land behind the creek, to someone named Milton Graves. She didn't know the name, but one signature stood out. Her father's. He had signed the land away. But why? And why had he hidden it? A distant engine hummed, and Emma froze. She snatched the documents and stuffed them inside her jacket just as a pickup rolled into view. Dark green, tinted windows, unfamiliar. It stopped beside her father's truck. A man stepped out, broad-shouldered, wearing a hat pulled low. He looked around slowly, then toward the shack. Emma backed away, barefoot silence, heart pounding against her throat. She slipped out the back, circling around the creek, watching as the man entered the shack, staying only a minute before storming out, cursing, slamming the door. When he got back in his truck and sped away, she ran. She didn't stop until she reached her father's pickup, locked herself inside, and peeled out so fast gravel spit behind the tires. She didn't know who he was, but he knew she had been there. Back in town, she drove straight to the sheriff's office, half out of fear, half a desperate need for answers. But Sheriff Dalton barely looked at the documents before sighing. Everyone knew Dalton had respected her father, hunted with him, drank with him. Old land deals, he said, leaning back in his chair. Nothing illegal about it. Don't dig up ghosts, Emma. Leave the past where it is. That should have calmed her. It didn't. When she walked out, she caught two deputies watching her like she was the problem, not whatever was happening behind the scenes. By the time she got home, her mother was on the porch, arms crossed, eyes red. Word traveled fast in a small town. What were you thinking? Her mother snapped. Going to that man with your father's name in your mouth like that? Emma tried to explain, tried to show her the notebook, the messages, the envelope. But her mother went pale at the sight of Liam's handwriting. She snatched the notebook from Emma's hands. You should have burned this, she whispered. Your father wanted it gone. That sentence felt like a slap. Mom, did you know about the land? About Graves? Her mother shut down, lips tight, jaw trembling, refusing to answer. When Emma demanded the notebook back, her mother said nothing, just hugged it to her chest, and went inside, locking the door. That night, the house felt like a stranger's home. Shadows gathered in corners, memories pressed against the walls. Emma slept with her phone in her hand, expecting another message, another picture, another set of coordinates. At 2:14 a.m., it came. A photo of the shack, taken from the road, someone watching from a distance. Then a second message. You're not the only one looking for him. Emma's hands shook, not from fear, but from anger. For years, everyone pretended Liam was dead, crazy, or a criminal. But now there were messages, documents, and a stranger checking the shack. Someone else believed Liam was alive, or wanted to make sure Emma never found out what happened. At dawn, Emma drove to the only person in town who might tell her the truth, Mrs. Keller, the neighbor who had lived next to them since before she was born. The old woman answered before Emma even knocked, as if she had been waiting. Her voice trembled when she spoke Liam's name. She said she had heard his fights with their father, had seen him driving away that night with tears in his eyes, and that the next day, Someone else came looking for him, a man she didn't recognize. Your father lied about a lot of things, Mrs. Keller whispered. Not because he was cruel, because he was scared. Before Emma could press her for details, a dark SUV rolled slowly down the street. The driver's window tinted black, engine barely audible. Mrs. Keller's face drained of color. She closed the door without another word. Emma stood alone on the porch, clutching the notebook, the SUV idling like a threat. When it finally drove off, she couldn't breathe. Someone was watching her. Someone who didn't want the past touched. And if Liam's words in the notebook were true, if anything happens to me, it's because he made it happen. Then Emma wasn't uncovering an old family argument. She was stepping into the same danger her brother had. Emma spent the afternoon at the public library, not because she wanted to, but because it was the only place in town where she could think without someone staring at her like she was losing her mind. The librarian, Mrs. Grayson, gave her a polite nod but didn't ask questions. Thank God. Emma took a corner table, opened Liam's notebook, and began copying names, dates, and fragments into a spiral pad of her own. Most entries revolved around one man, Milton Graves. The name kept appearing with phrases like the deal, the creek land, he knows, and one final haunting line. If Dad signs, I disappear. Emma checked public records using the library computer. The land behind the creek had been transferred to Milton Graves 8 years ago, 6 months after Liam vanished. But something was wrong. The paperwork listed Liam as a witness to the transaction. A signature matching his, dated long after the night he walked out of their house and never came back. There was no trace of him being in town that day. No sighting, no record, nothing. Either the signature was forged or he came back in secret. Emma leaned back in the chair, heart racing, trying to make sense of it. If Liam came back, why would he sign anything? Why wouldn't he come home? She scribbled questions into the margin until her phone vibrated. Another text, same blocked number. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was a name. Ask Deputy Morris. Emma's stomach nodded. Morris was the youngest deputy in Dalton's department. Awkward, quiet, always avoiding eye contact. She remembered him staring at her in the sheriff's office earlier. Not judging, terrified. She packed everything into her backpack and hurried outside, pulse thumping. The station was across town, but she didn't dare drive her father's truck there. Instead, she walked. The sun was setting by the time she reached the station's back lot. Deputies' cars lined the gravel drive, radios hissing through open windows. She spotted Morris by the side entrance, smoking nervously. When he saw her coming, his shoulders stiffened. I need to talk to you, Emma said, breathless. It's about my brother. His eyes flicked toward the door, toward the security camera above them. Not here. He snuffed the cigarette, motioning for her to follow. They crossed the lot, slipping through a gate into the dark park behind the building. Morris kept checking over his shoulder like a man expecting a gunshot. I can't help you, he whispered. This town is crawling with people who don't want your brother mentioned. You know what happened to him. It wasn't a question. Morris swallowed, hands shaking. Liam wasn't crazy. He wasn't a criminal. He tried to expose something. Expose what? Land laundering. Illegal transfers. Fake loans. Your father got caught in it years ago. He tried to back out, but Graves doesn't let people walk away. Emma felt her legs weaken. So Liam ran? No. Morris's voice cracked. They took him. That moment hung in the air like a blade. Emma's breath left her lungs. Who? Graves and the people who work for him. I heard the sheriff talking about it once, said it was handled, and nobody needed to look any deeper. I was just a clerk back then. I didn't understand. Her voice was barely a whisper. Is he dead? Morris hesitated. I don't think so. Those 4 words hit harder than any gunshot could. Alive. Somewhere. Before Emma could ask more, headlights swept over the field. A dark SUV rolled into the parking lot. Same tinted windows, same slow crawl. Morris went pale. They can't see me talking to you. He shoved a folded slip of paper into her hand. Go. Now. Emma ran, cutting through the park, through yards, until she reached her father's old truck. She didn't start it right away. She sat with her hands shaking against the steering wheel, unfolding the paper. A phone number. And beneath it, a name, Elias Granger. She didn't know who he was, but the message with it chilled her. He knows where Liam was taken. Emma started the engine. Gravel spat. The road home was dark, moonless. When she pulled into the driveway, the lights in the house were off. Too dark. Too quiet. She stepped inside cautiously, heart pounding. Mom. No answer. She moved through the living room, kitchen, hallway. Every light switch she hit revealed emptiness. Silence swallowed the house until she reached her mother's room. The door stood open. The window was shattered. Glass on the carpet. Curtains blowing in the night air. Her mother was gone. Emma staggered back, stomach hollow, pulse roaring in her ears. On the bed sat the notebook, Liam's notebook, placed neatly, almost respectfully. A single page had been marked with a red ribbon. She slid into the chair, hands trembling, and read the highlighted words. You're already too close. Her phone buzzed once. A new message, same number. If you want your mother back, stop digging. Emma closed her eyes. The fear was real, sharp, suffocating. But beneath it was something stronger, a resolve she'd never felt before. They had taken her brother. Now they had taken her mother. And there was no universe in which she was stopping. Not now. Not ever. Emma didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. The walls of the house felt like a mouth closing around her, swallowing every breath, every sound, every trace of the life she'd had before all this started. By sunrise, she had a plan. Not a good one, not a safe one, but a plan that moved her feet when fear wanted to chain her in place. She drove to a motel on the edge of town, rented a room under a fake name from an old ID she still carried from college, and sat on the stained bedspread staring at the number Morris had given her. Elias Granger. She called 3 times, went to voicemail, and each time she nearly threw the phone across the room. At 9:12 a.m., the phone rang back. A deep, tired voice answered. Who gave you this number? Emma swallowed. I'm Emma Whitmore. You knew my brother. Silence stretched long enough to make her think he'd hung up. Where are you? He finally asked. She didn't trust him. Not with the SUV following her. Not with her mother missing. But she gave him an address near the gas station across from the abandoned feed store. If he was dangerous, she'd see him coming. She hid Liam's notebook under her jacket and waited by the truck. 15 minutes later, a weathered blue sedan pulled in. A man in his 60s stepped out, gray beard, sunburnt face, eyes sharp like someone who'd spent a lifetime staring at trouble and surviving it. You're Liam's sister, he said, studying her like she was a puzzle with missing pieces. He talked about you. That alone nearly broke her. She had spent 10 years thinking Liam hated them all, that he'd died angry and alone. But this stranger spoke like Liam mattered, like he hadn't disappeared into smoke and silence. What happened to him? Emma asked, voice hoarse. Granger leaned against the hood, lowering his voice. Your father made a deal with Graves. Land transfers, money under the table, promises that couldn't be kept. When your father tried to back out, Graves sent people after him. Liam found out. He tried to save your father. Emma's knees weakened. He didn't run away? Granger shook his head. He met me here, told me he had proof, documents, recordings, names. We were supposed to go to federal investigators together. But the night before, he vanished. My place was trashed. His truck was gone. Everyone acted like nothing happened. Emma's pulse thundered. He's alive. Granger hesitated, eyes dark. He was. A year after he disappeared, someone emailed me a short message. Don't trust anyone in Riverside. It was his writing. After that, nothing. Emma told him about the notebook, the messages, the SUV, her mother disappearing. Something flickered in his eyes, fear, then anger. Graves is getting desperate, he said. If your mother is missing, they're using her to keep you silent. But if they still want leverage, your brother is probably alive, too. It felt like hope and terror crashing into each other. Granger told her to follow him. They drove 2 towns over to an old mechanic's shop disguised as abandoned, but the inside smelled of oil, metal, and secrets. On the back table were files, maps, USB drives, evidence Granger had been collecting for years. He slid forward a folder labeled Milton Graves. Photos of men with weapons, warehouse addresses, satellite images of the Creek land, transactions that tied Graves to half a dozen shell companies. Your father tried to expose Graves, Granger said quietly. They silenced him. And they'll do the same to you if you keep going without help. Emma forced herself to breathe. I don't care what happens to me. I just want my family back. For the first time, his expression softened. Then you need real protection. I can get you in touch with a federal agent who knows Graves by name. But you'll need proof, something bigger than this. Emma pulled out Liam's notebook and laid it on the table. Granger flipped through it, eyes narrowing. This is enough to get a warrant on Graves' properties. Before she could respond, the garage lights flickered. A soft mechanical click echoed, the unmistakable sound of a camera lens turning. Granger swore under his breath, grabbed Emma by the wrist, and dragged her to the back exit. They found us, he whispered. As they reached the alley, tires screeched. A black SUV shot around the corner, blocking the street. Two men stepped out, dressed in plain clothes but carrying themselves like professionals. Hard, silent, efficient. Run, Granger hissed. Emma sprinted, lungs burning, heart hammering. Liam's notebook clutched to her chest. A gunshot cracked behind her, then another. She ducked behind a dumpster, gravel biting into her palms. Granger fired back. Emma hadn't even known he had a weapon. The SUV door slammed, and engines roared as one man got back inside. The vehicle lurched forward, aiming straight for Granger. Emma screamed, but Granger dove aside at the last second. He fired again, shattering the windshield. The SUV swerved, crashing into a utility pole. Smoke curled from the hood. Emma ran to him, shaking. We have to go. They'll send more. Granger grabbed a metal lockbox from inside the garage before following. They took his car and sped away, leaving smoke, gunfire, and shattered evidence behind. When they reached the highway, Granger finally spoke. It's too late to stay quiet. They already think you know everything. Emma stared ahead, knuckles white on the dashboard. Then we hit them first. Granger nodded once. There's a warehouse outside Riverside. It's where they keep records, real ones. If Liam is alive, if your mother is still safe, the answers are there. Thunder rolled across the sky, and the first drops of rain splattered the windshield. Emma felt the fear claw at her again, but she pushed it down, burying it under something sharper. Rage, purpose, the kind of resolve that didn't break. They drove into the storm, two headlights cutting through the dark, toward the place where everything had gone wrong, and the only place where the truth could still be found. The rain came harder as they neared Riverside, slashing across the windshield in sheets that blurred the road into streaks of white and black. Granger drove like a man who'd done this before, every turn measured, every glance in the rearview precise. The warehouse sat 2 miles outside of town, surrounded by skeletal trees and half-drowned fields. By the time they parked behind a row of abandoned silos, Emma could barely feel her hands. You sure this is it? She asked, shivering, voice raw from exhaustion. Granger nodded. This is where Graves stores what he can't risk keeping in his own name. Contracts, cash, people. That last word froze her. People. She didn't ask again. They slipped out of the car, the air heavy with the smell of wet dirt and diesel. The warehouse loomed ahead, gray, windowless, the hum of generators somewhere inside. A single floodlight buzzed near the entrance, haloed in rain. Granger picked the lock with practiced hands, and the door gave a low, shuddering groan. Inside, the air was colder, lined with metal shelving and rows of crates stamped with coded labels. Stay close, he whispered. Emma followed, boots squelching softly against the damp concrete. They wove between aisles until Granger stopped at a table piled with file boxes. He pried one open and pulled out stacks of papers, ledgers, property deeds, even police reports with the sheriff's signature. Dalton's in it too, he muttered. That explains why he shut you down. Emma scanned one page and froze. Her father's name appeared again and again, next to payments, withdrawals, meetings. But then, near the bottom, another name leapt out. Liam Whitmore. Witness transfer, 2017. The same forged document she'd seen in the library records. Granger frowned. If these are originals, the feds can. A noise cut him off. A door slamming. Voices. 2 men, maybe 3. Emma's pulse exploded. Granger yanked the overhead light off and motioned her toward a dark corner. Footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. Flashlights swept the aisles. Someone tripped the motion sensor, a voice said. Check the back. Emma held her breath as light passed inches from her face. Granger slipped a small pistol from his coat, but didn't raise it yet. The men moved closer, their boots sharp against the floor. Then one of them stopped at the table. The box is open. You think it's the girl? Could be. Boss said she's still digging. A pause. Then, he wants her alive. Emma felt her stomach twist. They knew she was here. She tried to steady her breathing, tried not to move, but her foot brushed against a loose wrench. It clattered, loud as thunder. The flashlights whipped toward her. There! Granger fired once, the shot deafening in the metal room. One man went down. The others opened fire, bullets slicing through the dark. Emma dropped flat, the notebook pressed to her chest. Granger grabbed her arm. Run! They sprinted down the aisle, ducking behind crates as bullets ricocheted. A second door appeared ahead, emergency exit. Granger slammed his shoulder into it, and they stumbled into the rain-soaked night. The sound of pursuit followed them. Shouts, engines roaring to life. Get in, Granger shouted, throwing the lockbox into the back seat. The car fishtailed onto the dirt road, headlights slashing through rain. Emma looked back just in time to see the warehouse light up, fire blooming through broken windows. They're burning the evidence, she gasped. Everything. Not everything, Granger said, his jaw tight. He reached into his coat and pulled out a USB drive. I grabbed this from the ledgers. If it's what I think it is, it's enough to bury graves in half the county. They drove for miles in silence, wind rattling the car, rain masking the sound of sirens far behind them. Finally, they stopped beneath an overpass outside town. Emma leaned forward, head in her hands. They have my mother, she said. They'll kill her if they think I went to the feds. Then we don't go to them, Granger said. Not yet. We find where Graves keeps leverage, the people he can't afford to lose. Your brother might still be one of them. He plugged the USB into his laptop. The screen flickered, loaded a directory of files, then a folder named Archive, Creekside. Emma's heart nearly stopped. Inside were photographs, grainy security footage labeled by date. And in one from 2019, there he was. Liam. Older, thinner, bruised, sitting in a dim room with chains on his wrists. Her hand flew to her mouth. He's alive, she whispered. Granger's face hardened. That photo's from the old mill site near the river. Graves used it before moving his operations here. If he's still alive, that's where they'd keep him. Emma felt her pulse rise, her fear burned away by adrenaline. Then that's where we go. Granger hesitated. If we do this, there's no going back. They'll come after you, and they won't stop this time. She met his eyes, steady. They already took everything. What's left to lose? The storm outside grew wilder, wind howling through the cracks of the bridge. Granger turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Then let's end this, he said. As they pulled back onto the road, lightning split the horizon, illuminating the drenched fields and the faint outline of the mill rising from the mist ahead, an empty ruin that had swallowed too many secrets. Somewhere inside, Emma's mother and brother might still be alive. Somewhere inside waited the truth that had killed her father. And she was ready to face it, even if it destroyed her too. The mill loomed in the distance like a wounded beast, its rusted silos jutting against the lightning-streaked sky. Emma and Granger left the car a quarter-mile out and continued on foot through mud and knee-high weeds, rain hissing off the metal skeleton ahead. Every window was boarded, every door chained, but a single light flickered deep inside, cutting through the dark like a pulse. Granger motioned for silence, then pried open a side hatch. The smell hit first: oil, rust, damp wood, and something faintly chemical. They slipped in, boots crunching glass, and the silence was thick enough to hear their own breathing. Somewhere, machinery hummed faintly, alive but abandoned. Emma's eyes adjusted to the dark, and she saw a corridor lined with doors, some open, revealing rooms filled with crates, broken tools, and chains bolted to the walls. They moved deeper until they heard voices, two men arguing near a generator. Granger mouthed "Stay here," then vanished like smoke. A few seconds later, the sound of a brief struggle echoed, and then silence again. When he returned, he was holding a keycard and blood streaked his sleeve. "Control room's this way," he said. Emma followed him up a narrow stairwell until they reached a door labeled Security Access. Inside, monitors flickered to life, revealing camera feeds, hallways, storage rooms, and one small cell in the basement. Emma froze. Her mother sat inside, slumped on a chair, wrists bound, face bruised but alive. Granger found the control to unlock the cell remotely, but before he could press it, a voice came from the doorway. "Don't." They turned to see Graves himself, dry despite the rain, a pistol in hand, and that same mocking calm from the town hall. "You've been busy, Miss Whitmore," he said. "Your father would have been proud if he hadn't made such a mess of things." Emma felt her blood boil. "You killed him." Graves smiled. "No, sweetheart. He killed himself trying to protect you from what he built. He was my partner before he got soft." Granger shifted slightly, and Graves noticed, raising the gun. "You're not going to shoot your way out of this," he said. "The moment I don't call in, those files you stole vanish, and so do the people you love." "We already backed them up," Emma lied, voice shaking. Graves' smile faltered for the first time. "You didn't." "Try me," she said. For a long second, no one moved. Then thunder cracked, shaking the rafters. Graves turned slightly toward the sound, and Granger lunged. The gun fired, a flash of light, deafening. Emma ducked, ears ringing, and saw Graves fall against the monitors, shattering glass as he went down. Granger collapsed too, clutching his side, blood seeping between his fingers. "Go," he gasped. "Get her out." Emma ran, barely seeing through the smoke and flashing lights. Down the stairs, through the hall, until she reached the cell. Her mother's eyes widened, disbelief and relief crashing together. "Emma, we have to move," she said, unlocking the cuffs. "Liam's here too, somewhere." They stumbled toward the loading bay, but as they passed one of the lower rooms, Emma stopped. A voice, weak but unmistakable, called her name. She turned, and there he was. Liam, pale, thinner than she remembered, eyes hollow but alive. He tried to stand, and she caught him, tears mingling with rain and soot. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. He managed a faint smile. "I almost was." The sound of sirens grew louder in the distance. Someone must have called it in. She helped both of them toward the exit, light flashing red from somewhere above. As they burst out into the storm, the mill erupted behind them in a roar of fire and metal. The blast threw them to the ground, debris raining down like ash. Emma looked back to see the old structure collapsing, swallowing everything. Granger, the ledgers, the ghosts. Her mother clung to her, trembling. Liam's head rested against her shoulder, eyes half closed. "It's over," she whispered, though she didn't believe it. Hours later, when the police finally arrived, Emma watched the ruins burn from the back of an ambulance. No one asked the right questions. No one mentioned Graves, or the files, or the people who'd disappeared. They just called it an accident, another forgotten fire in a forgotten town. But as dawn broke, Emma reached into her pocket and felt the small flash drive Granger had slipped her before he died. Inside it lay everything: names, accounts, the truth that could destroy them all. She turned it in her hand, unsure if she should give it to the feds or burn it herself. Her mother stirred beside her, whispering her name. Liam slept, hand still gripping hers. The sky brightened, gold cutting through the smoke, and for the first time in years, she felt both free and haunted. She slipped the drive into her jacket and stared at the horizon. Some secrets, she thought, don't die, they just change owners. And she was done running.